Eek, eek. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Research Roadshow. Today's Friday, and it's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, John. Nice to see you bright and early. And I think we will soon be joined by Amber and Tara when they get here. So we'll have a bigger conversation. But in the meantime, good morning. Or at least it's good morning on the West Coast.
Good morning, and it's just a little bit into the afternoon here, but it has been a good morning. I've got some good feedback very early this morning from some of our subscribers in Ohio, two of our subscribers in Ohio, and it looks like we're scoring small victories here and there, thanks to the work that Research Roadshow and its affiliates are doing.
Well, that is always good news. Sometimes it feels like we're broadcasting to a handful of people, but things are happening, and I think we can only do what we can do, and we're just all doing that, and eventually it's going to add up, and it is adding up. I think we're seeing all over the place that more actual truth is coming out. People are starting to ask more questions about some of the stuff that's just been repeated over and over again. That's always good to see.
Yes, it is, and the number of parents pulling their kids out of school, maybe not this school year, it's winding down, but had number of parents that have promised to pull their kids out of school next year has threatened many school boards. They're starting to count, get out their calculator and figure out the cost of having these kids out of school.
Well, that's excellent news because, some of, all these mandates that are just coming down from the top or bubbling up from the bottom, wherever they're coming from on school policies are so distressing. So the pushback is really appreciated. I think we just need more pushback if we want to keep humanity human, which I am a big advocate of keeping humanity human. Maybe we need a little sign.
But without the little red hat. Everyone's coming up lately with new slogans, "Make Americans Human Again," stuff like that.
That's a good one.
I'm not into those red hats. Or in Italy in the 1970s, it was shoes. You had to have a particular kind of shoe. But it is encouraging to see these little things. People are voting with their feet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, we do. I think as humans, I think we do like tribes, and we do enjoy to feel included and be part of something. And that let's just hope that there's enough of those little independent thinker ones, independent thinker tribes that are growing. So, yeah. Well, one thought I had earlier this week, I saw a little funny statistic that there are 3 million people for each billionaire. And I don't know if that's in the US or in the world, but it was sort of fun to think about that. And that maybe we need a watchdog agency for the billionaires who are in the great minority to keep an eye on them and to, ask them, how many government contracts did you get? I mean, there's just lots of questions that we could be asking. Are you picking up your messes? Or, where did this wealth come from? How come it's so much bigger all of a sudden? There's just a much bigger gap. So I think we deserve to be able to ask questions about that. Why can't we debate things? Why can't we bring things up anymore? That's one of the questions. How can we bring more facts in instead of just algorithms that are looking into the future and making decisions based on modeling? That's something too that would be nice to have actual real people to be able to ask real questions. I think that's one way we got where we are right now, is that we're relying on algorithms that are making predictions based on assumptions that aren't right. Obviously, we're seeing that now.
Well, I'm going to address that. I'm going to respond to that point in just a couple minutes. Hold that thought. I'm going to bring in Tara.
Oh, great.
Good morning, Tara.
Hi.
Hey guys! Happy spring into action.
You got sunshine.
Yeah, we got sunshine. We got some lilacs coming. The raspberries are
Oh,
doing pretty good. The chickens are happy.
that's great. We have torrential rain here, and it's just mucky, mucky, mucky. And we even had a huge hailstorm yesterday that was thick. So maybe not that thick, but you know, it was
Wow.
bouncing and white, and just it's not unheard of to have a spring like this here, but we haven't had one in since last year. Last year we had one, but before that we'd had beautiful springs and they are so appreciated. It's hard to think of planting though when everything's gonna wash away.
Yeah, you got to start some stuff inside, right?
Right.
And and also I meant not that we want April hail, but April showers supposed to bring good things.
That's right. Yeah.
I know in
Especially if you
Wisconsin they had snow the other day.
Yeah, well, I think in Washington there was snow. One of our ospreys that's up close to Canada had snow that was sticking everywhere. And said it's the first time ever it's been that cold at this time of the year.
That's interesting because someone that I follow that moves around a lot, they were somewhere where there was snow, and I'm like, where is there snow? Right? Like, where are they?
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I got an email from Dave Fitz, who lives just north of Seattle, and on April 18th, he had 6 inches of snow on his roof.
yeah, he was who I was thinking of because he's in the Northwest, and he's actually north of Seattle, far enough, and he is at a little altitude too. But he said it was unusual and never before happened like that.
Well, my friends in Vermont, I just saw them, and they said it was kind of usual, but they're like the snow is just still melting, and they got the mud. Honestly, that's why I don't want to be or plan to be any farther north than I already am.
Yeah, so much for the global warming. We're definitely not seeing that right now this year and last year. And
No, that's why they had to change it to climate change because
right.
that way it could be more variable and they could still keep their cover.
Yeah.
So what have you guys? I mean, I have my antennas up, but what do you think if I haven't been paying close attention to what you guys are doing? What do you think I'm missing?
You mean for today's show?
Just like in general, like I have spring fever. So every time I am about to go into my like communications or something, I'm like, okay, what should I be doing work-wise? So a lot of so then I keep it just like, all right, my heart, my antenna, but I am spending a lot of time just like making plans and doing other stuff. But that being said, I feel like our positioning in the world right now in the spring and all this revelation stuff is pretty dang good. What do you guys think?
Well, there is a lot coming out, and I'm very excited to hear that. And then there's a lot of weirdness coming out too. And one of the links I sent John, and we can talk about this later when Amber gets here, because I'm sure she'll have plenty to say about this. But it is some guidelines that the UN published of, decriminalizing everything and, removing the age of consent and having it be okay to have people traffic other people in a number of ways. And it's just completely shocking as a human that this would be something the UN would put out there. So anyway, there's plenty to talk about that. And I saw a funny, they're pretty funny. The Redacted guys are dug this up and had a lot to say about it. That was, it's not being picked up. Why not? Why are we letting the UN do all this stuff when they're saying things like this that is just outrageous.
Yeah, but it's like a lot of these agencies or whatever you want to call them, they've just like dug themselves in so deep as like a respectable blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So it's like people to I'm at normies. No, I don't mean it any offense, but just the idea of like saying, okay, you need to analyze the fact that maybe say the UN wasn't even created for anything good or anything that they say that they were created for.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And it's like I think we expect something nefarious coming from them, but like you're saying, it's not getting picked up because people don't have a stink eye on, or many people don't have a stink eye on them, I guess.
Yeah,
so
and
creepy.
they don't want to think that a big global agency could have nefarious intent.
And especially to that degree, like you might think like financial, you know, they want financial, you know, something out of it, but to the degree of the depravity, that is, you know, it's one of the running things that I think is getting out there, but not quick enough, and
yeah, not quick
you know,
enough.
not quick enough, and not quick enough to the details on like not just having these bagmen, you know, to be the scapegoat, but like actually look at it and as far as like what real conspiracy is, like, you know, an organized effort to lie, deceive, and like you said, like straight up slavery. Like these people are obsessed with their slavery. They just
Yeah,
they pretend that it's like, oh, it's like an ethnic situation, blah blah blah, when really it's a socio-economic, like they don't believe in the freedoms of the Constitution type situation.
exactly. I think that's what it is, Tara, and it's putting it in this language that is so squirrely. Like people have the right to shoot up every day wherever they are, or to do stuff in their tent or their little home. That you know, it, in order the right to use their body to make money, you know, stuff like that. It's not a right to be able to be exploited. You know, it's there's something really depraved with that kind of thinking, and I think that because it's a guideline, is being pushed out to, you know, the people that are in place, the young global leader type young people are accepting this kind of language, saying, okay, you know, this is somehow some sort of right that we need to be able to poop on the street and leave it there when we have to pick up our dog poop. It's
Right.
really absurd.
That is exactly the kind of hypocrisy that just blows me away. That
Mm-hmm.
they'll give you a $50 fine for not picking up your dog poop, but then an adult human being can poop on the street. It's just
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, and you said it. It's like if you really analyze what these people, you know, the social engineers, it's filth across the board is what they are trying to promote. That, you know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the kind of thing that you, no matter if you're talking about something physical, you know, or mental, emotional, it's like that's where you can come in and rightfully be discriminatory and say, never mind about who's doing what. Like, we don't want bacteria laden streets. That's not acceptable for a community to say, you know, it puts people at a health risk. And so,
Mm-hmm.
not that we have to be like, you know, it just, the more that a community can agree upon, the easier it is to put the funds and to get the right people that actually promote a function. And we really need to dissect out these funds and these people that like are secretly trying to tear down the functions of society in the name of representing whatever their community they represent is.
Yeah,
well said.
equity.
Very well
Yeah,
said.
and I think this the idea of degradation is we see it, when you go in a city, you see that happening all over the place, and it's not only being okay not to see it or not to do anything about it, but now there's, the laws are changing to really accept this kind of just total depravity and degradation of humanity as a whole. I mean, we had to have some kinds of standards because it matters. It matters to respect people and to be able to love people and to be able to care about people. Those things matter, but and help each other. Those things matter too, but not to do it in a way that brings us all down. And just even looking at it, it's
Well, that's the idea behind the the communistic, socialistic, whatever model, is to be like, we want the bottom of the barrel to be the aim for everybody.
the
Keep everybody
lowest
down
common
at once. Yeah,
denominator.
the lowest
Yeah.
common denominator. Exactly. And
Well, I
I
think
even
it's
saw.
go ahead.
No, I'll remember. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking it's below the lowest common denominator. I think it's moving towards, well, people are so bad, we'll just have to herd them up and get rid of them, and I mean that's where things are moving, and we've seen it happen before.
Well, yeah,
So
that's the idea of like, removing people quietly from society, because after all, it's like, say for example, from things that I've tracked personally and whatever, but like in this, say that the drugs that they're putting out like in the 70s or whatever, and then at the same time they start ramping up this like child services thing, right? So it's like, the same people that are pumping out the stuff that are tearing down the families, and then they swoop in and say, oh, you're not doing a good job, we're gonna have to deal with your relationship with your children, blah blah, and now it's peaking today with this absolute insanity of people actually saying like, oh, this thing called so-called parents' rights or whatever. It's like, what are these lunatics talking about?
Well, I think it's all part of a general trend, a general effort, not limited to the United Nations, not limited to the European Commission, to try and get us disgusted with humanity, even with people in our own neighborhood, within our own household. When we are all so disgusted with humanity 1.0, we'll embrace the Homo sapiens 2.0 or whatever they have planned.
the good news is what I'm seeing, and I know I'm only seeing a little slice, but my city gets such bad press at being completely degraded, and there are places that are like that, but what I see is a big cleanup effort, and I see people pitching in and helping each other and taking away trash, and it is a community effort, and maybe there's something nefarious behind it, some of it, but a lot of it is just a welling up of enough is enough. We don't want to live like this anymore, and we can't rely on the police because they've been defunded for whatever reason. Maybe you see blocks where these little teeny houses are all squished in there, and there's communal areas, and that's an improvement in people being able to function or have some dignity. But if inside those little houses are just people dying of overdoses, then it really isn't. So we just got to keep our eyes open to not let that happen. It's hard. I mean, because it's coming from every different direction, and that's the asymmetrical warfare that we're feeling. So,
Yeah, and
well,
I just want to say that I did see, I think it was probably San Francisco, I don't know, more Northern California, where they put a syringe vending machine in the lobby of this low income housing thing. And like these poor veteran couple that like didn't look very healthy themselves, but just from whatever life and whatever, they were just like mortified. I'm like, what are you trying to promote here? You know, it's just so backwards.
Yeah. There's just some deep depravity under there that is feels so wrong, and I think we have to stand up to it because it's moving forward, and I think we are standing up to it, and that's the good news. Yeah, people.
Well, like you said, Carol, community being able to recognize, it's just like, I mean, you can look at it on small scale. You know what I mean? If somebody is in a household where things aren't, you know, running right, it's like you can talk about it, which is good. You can, you know, nag at people, which can be effective, but pretty soon you just got to get your hands dirty and dig right in and start leading by example and kind of like moving the project the way that it needs to get moved. And then if people take that initiative, then the people, you know, more and more people can jump in. There's already cleanup going on. It's in their hearts to have a good community, so they do come and do it with every good intention and a good effect.
My dog stopped barking.
You're right that there needs to be some kind of effort to cooperate with one another. But the problem is always funding. What gets funded in a local community are usually things that divide people. For example, here in this section of Atlanta, they just opened a kind of a library. It's not really a library, but it's a center, after school center, but it's only for children of color so that they can improve their reading ability. And the sign says only for children of color. And that kind of thing is immediately divisive because there are a lot of relatively poor whites, or mostly white people that don't, whose kids would love an after school center like this. So it's always a question of where is there anything that moves people toward the center to find common ground that's getting some generous funding.
Well, that, you know, on this, what you're saying in the funding thing, I can see it right now, because it's like, first of all, that is such a disturbing sentiment and sign, okay? Because it's like, not only are there people that aren't of color, it's like, do you know how many people are mixed? So who defines what a person of color even is? You know what I mean? It's like, it's like I know personally from my studies, and I think we understand, or a lot of understanding is that genes and culture don't follow the same paths. So it's like, if somebody, you identify, you know what I mean? It's just a big mess. It's a big, that is just to cause trouble. And when you talk about funding, okay, I was looking in, like Indeed, job feeds and stuff, just like, see what was going on in the area, whatever. And I noticed that these jobs that, a school, teacher for summer school with kids, or a couple of things that had like really softened language about the CRT, calling it social emotional learning and making it sound all good and stuff. But we know the buzzwords. So these jobs always pay quite a bit more than the other ones, like $225 a day, $30 an hour, where like other stuff of similar might be like 50, like, just less. So it's like, where is this funding coming from? And I think it's like places like the Fethullah Gulen flipping whatever kind of structure they've been, I'm sure it's not just one place, but it's highly funded, let's put it that way. And it's so devious.
that's a great point, Tara, because I think, we were just asking the questions about, well, who funded all the hospital kickbacks, and where's all this money coming from? Because the hospitals were like going under and they had no other income. So they had to do the remdesivir and put people on, uh, you know, ventilators, etc. They got paid for it. They got paid for people to die. A lot of money. And so yeah, where's this money coming from? That's what I think the oversight of the billionaires committee that we were talking about earlier, the watchdog on the billionaires and their corporations, needs to happen, because I think a lot of even the UN, it used to be funded by countries, and the WHO, but then that's shifted to all these foundations, and the foundations fund the stuff where the money comes back, and the big cycle goes back into their corporations. It's self-serving. It's not really, I mean, it's called charity, but it in the end, like Bill Gates, he gives all the money to Gavi, and then he owns all these vaccine companies, or he's a big investor, so he gets all the profits, and it's this cycle of the rich getting richer on all these ideas. And we really need to start understanding how that's been shifted fairly recently, and how to find more real equity of getting things leveled out, to have a playing field that's fair at all. Because right now it's like you poop on the streets, or you have billions and billions of dollars and can do whatever you want and have control over who you are and if you want to go to Mars or all this stuff, but the divide is ridiculous, and it's time. And I think that was one of the things that here in America, there wasn't that giant big divide for forever. There was a period of time where it actually went the other way, and the middle class had good jobs and felt like their kids would be better off than they would be, and that happened for a while. And now it's completely reversed very suddenly, shockingly suddenly.
Well, you just described it perfectly on why these evil ones want to remove the common ground, because it's like, the conquer and divide depends on faults, and the bigger you can make the faults between the two things being divided, then the more separate they will be, and the more you can just have ultimate control, because they never communicate with each other. And if you look at it on that straight up financial thing, it's like that definitely is their goal. And we've seen it in some of these like early in the Great Awakening, where like pictures of like Stratfor or whatever these companies, and they're literally like putting out these scenes that are like disgusting, like, you know what I mean, like worse than third world, like something really disturbed, and they're putting out like they want people just living like this. And then almost what they're trying to do to California, like, a short distance away these people have like these mansions on the ocean, but somebody loves the fact that people are just like out suffering in the streets. It's just like,
well, they
you
can take
see it if
advantage
you're
of
near.
them. Yeah. And if the power shifts to the people that are exploiting the poor, like the pimps, the pimp class, and the drug dealers, which is what it sounds like from the UN stuff that's just come out, that's all decriminalized. You can sell drugs, and you can be third party to trafficking people, and it's their choice. It's the language is couched that the people who want to sell their organs or sell sex to make a living get to do that, because then they get to make a living, and otherwise they're discriminated against because they can't make a living. It's like wacky.
But again, focusing on the individual instead of the system.
Right. I think we need to really focus on how is the system broken, that it's moving in the wrong direction. Yeah, those are the right questions.
And it's like the way that they, the people in the media straight up like say the summer of 2020 when they're like, what Antifa? What the city is burning? Like who? So it's like kind of like they want it to be like this burning fire that nobody notices so it can like reach further and do more damage when damage control isn't called.
Well, it's funded to do
Good
that.
point.
The funding is what's like January 6th. They found out how many agents there were who were really the people pushing it forward. And, that finally came out after how many years now? A lot of
3.
years. And it's still not getting press, even though it did come out in the testimony. And we now know more about that, but it's not being publicized. So
Well,
narrative-
Someone
Chuck
told me that
Schumer
there were
came out.
40.
Remember,
Someone told me that
Chuck
there were
Schumer
40.
came out. 40 agents. Hey, that's a good number.
Well,
What did Schumer say?
we saw how many
I was
people.
just saying that he came out and said, Rupert Murdoch, you better not be letting Tucker put any more of this stuff on Fox. And then everyone's like, Fox.
Well, you were there, Tara. We saw it didn't take more than 40 to scale the walls, and someone had a 2x4. That's about the right amount of people that actually. Everyone else was milling around, looking for a bathroom.
Exactly. And I was carrying my cooler because I wanted to make sure that we had food. So that was good. And somehow we managed to just, I don't know. We knew that they were going to be messing with us. So we were a little bit prepared for that.
We had
so that was good. Yeah. And
our
we winded up. Yep. But it continues to be important. And it's so funny because, we didn't realize, like we knew it was an important day, but I don't think we realized, historically what was going to be made of it. Although I heard that it was actually the most people that ever gathered in Washington, D.C. And I do believe that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree with, I had my other biggest thing I'd ever been to was a Pavarotti concert in Central Park. And it was 250,000 people. And it was way more than that. Way, way, way more. And my husband went to Woodstock. And that was, what was that? 500,000, I think. So it was a lot of people because the mall going both ways. And it was miles and wide. So many people were there. But they were, la-di-da, having fun, happy, chatting away. They weren't there to storm the Capitol.
Well, I'll just give a quick shout out to Norman because although he wasn't, Norman Smith, the wonderful musician, although he wasn't at Woodstock, he was born while it was happening.
He was born?
Yeah, he was born like while Woodstock was happening, and then of course,
he was
he's got
born
and he's got such a musical spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think it was like in 6th grade, something where it was like the 20th anniversary of Woodstock, and I was personally like so inspired by it. Like I wrote in my little kid diary or whatever. But it's funny because one of the things that a friend had said to me actually about a year ago, just about some of the confusion about, we talk about what our friends think or whatever. And she was like, she was getting bent about the American flag. I don't know. I couldn't even focus on it, but she was like, don't you remember being like a hippie and blah, blah, blah. And like, I didn't really want to get into it with her. So I didn't even say this to her yet, but like, I just said out loud and I say it right now. It's always been about freedom. It doesn't matter what, style or what way or what culture you use to express it. It's like the key element is freedom. It's like that's what we need to hold on to. And to me, that's how I took the Woodstock thing. That's how I felt about it.
Well, I think knowing what we know now, I think there were similar elements at that time. That was going on then too. And, so it felt like that then. It felt like freedom, and we're going to get rid of this stupid Vietnam, endless wars, which we did not. We got rid of that one, but then they just kept coming thick and fast. They never stopped. And we stopped being aware of it somehow, you know.
Well, that was the
This is why
divide.
John
You can,
O'Loughlin. Yeah, this is why John O'Loughlin's reading all of these books, including Doug Valentine's T.D.
That was a huge eye opener for me.
Oh yeah,
Huge.
we've been involved in war for a long time, and it's always the guys at the top that make the money.
But I always wondered about Vietnam and what was the purpose. And reading that book, I understood the purpose was for drugs. I always thought, oh, it's oil, it's the corporations, but I didn't get the piece about, how much of what's gone on in this whole period of time has been drug dealing on a huge, giant level, from our governments. I just did not, I couldn't see that. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And now you everywhere you look, you see it. And who's making the money. It's a few people at the very top. So it's not just low level corruption. It's just like in Mexico, or Noriega, all that stuff we lived through. It's just like that here. It's exactly the same.
and also too, it's like, I think that, we've probably talked about before, but it's like generations are set up, and kind of some of these wars match up with the generations where it's like, oh, okay, at the end of that 10 years, everything's wrapped up neatly, it's over. But I think that's one of the things that we can recognize as a system, is that these wars feel isolated sometimes in a story, but they string together as a pattern, and they're really all linked to one thing.
Well, nice to see you, Amber.
Oh, good to see you. Except I just found out that my son has field day today. And I have never, no, I just got a text from my husband who let me know. So I'm going to dip in and say hello. And then I'm going to mention a video that I want to watch with you guys that I sent John. And then I'm going to run to field day so that I'm there to pick him up, because he's there from school. So he won't be at school for carpool. So a parent has to pick him up. So sorry about that. I was trying to get
it's a great day for
rides.
field day.
Yes, it is. So the video, John, is, let me see, the unvaccinated. And I want this to be inspirational as people start their weekend. We can do the other videos another time, but this is the one that I want to share because it's great.
And this is on your Twitter?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I got it now. All right, let's give me 30 seconds here to get the volume up.
How is the weather good there, Amber?
It's gorgeous. There's
Good.
lots of like pollen.
I'm so jealous.
There's lots of pollen, but it's gorgeous.
Carol, we'll send it to you.
Okay, I'm ready. We got one day about a week ago that was just so wonderful, but then it went away. It'll come.
Spring's so beautiful, but it's so in between.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's watch this video.
The unvaccinated. Even if fully vaccinated, my unvaccinated for standing this pressure.
You might have to start it again. It's already kicking out.
Children,
Yeah, it's a little shaky.
It's really choppy, and if we can't hear it, then
I still can't hear it.
Parents, children, friends, colleagues, and even doctors. People who are capable of such personality, courage, and critical ability are undoubtedly the best part of humanity. In all ages, levels of education, states, and ideas. They are of a special kind. They are the soldiers that every army of light wants to have in its ranks. They are the parent that every child wants to have, the children that every dreams of having. They are beings above the average of their societies. They are the essence of the people who have, well, built all cultures and conquered horizons. They are there, next to you. They look normal, but they are superheroes. They did not. They were the tree that withstood the hurricane of insults, discrimination, and social exclusion. And they did alone. And they believed that.
John, what is going on with your video? Like it's very choppy. What's happening?
It went into, and they believe that.
One.
Oh, are we having like a Is that him? Is that John trying to talk, or is that the video? So
it's the video.
John might be frozen.
But
it's sorry guys, it's just choppity chop. But this is very inspiring as far as
that you're casting. Let their careers sink. Had no care.
John, are you there?
Denunciation, but they has there been such a cast now?
Yeah, I'm here.
The video is crap.
it's chopping. It's chopping
Yes.
too much.
In the play.
Can you try it and start over? I don't know what's happening, but with
From all
almost every
looks, it
video
was
it does
the
that.
only ones who managed to resist collapse.
Okay.
That's you.
All right. Sorry about that. All right.
If
let's try
anybody
again. I'll
else is
turn-
there,
the reason I
if
turned my-
anybody, hang on, if anybody else is there using Wi-Fi, tell them to stop. So maybe
All right.
that's the problem.
try it again, and then I'll turn off my video again.
I'll play you some birds in the meantime. They're
The birds sound
twittering.
so nice.
They are so happy.
It's
Chickens got
beautiful.
more cover.
You have real
Leaves
leaves
coming in.
on your tree.
Yeah, exactly. Because that day was like a stark February
Correct.
day where there was, but we're getting better.
And critical ability are the best part of humanity.
You'll have to start it over here in the middle of the video.
And vaccinated. I was vaccinated for withstanding the greatest pressure I've ever seen. From partners, parents, children, colleagues, and even doctors. People who are personality, courage, and critical ability undoubtedly the best part of humanity. They are everywhere, in all ages, levels of education, states, and ideas. They are of a special kind. They are the soldiers that every army of light wants to have in its ranks. They are the parent that every child wants to have, and the children that every parent dreams of having. They are beings above the average of their societies. They are the essence of the people who have, well, built all cultures and conquered horizons. They are there, next to you. They look normal, but they are superheroes. They did what others could not. They were the tree that withstood the hurricane of insults, discrimination, and social exclusion. And they did it because they thought they were alone. And they believed that, well, they were the only ones. Banned from their families' tables at Christmas, they never saw anything so cruel. They lost their jobs, let their careers sink, had no more money, but they didn't care. They suffered immeasurable discrimination, denunciation, betrayal, and humiliation, but they kept on. For humanity was their thing. Now, we all know who are the best on the planet Earth. Men, women, young, old, rich, poor, of all races or religions, the unvaccinated, the chosen of the invisible ark, the only ones who managed to resist when everything collapsed. That's you. You passed an unimaginable test that many of the toughest Marines, commandos, Green Berets, astronauts, and even geniuses could not withstand. You are made of the stuff of the greatest who ever lived.
That was really great.
That was awesome. And I love that person's reaction too, because
Yeah.
it's like we're just, every day you got to toughen up, and it's been such an emotional ride.
Yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys. I feel bad that I'm jumping off to go to field day, but I don't want to miss it.
No,
And,
field day is so awesome.
Yeah, and all the kids compete and race. Hopefully I haven't missed it because I got the text late. But I hope you have a great weekend. And I just wanted to give that inspirational video. I was saving it to the end, but since I'm here, I wanted to see it with you guys, and I can send you guys the link later.
Yes.
Because it's something that if you start to feel down or hear nincompoops say nincompoop things, you can always turn it on, twirl in circles, go outside, take a deep breath, talk to the birds, go back in and have a lovely cup of soup or something, and take a big, deep sigh, smile at your loved ones, pet your pets, and look up at the sky and say, thank you for the guidance that you've given me. And I think that starting off any weekend like that is a great place to start. And I will catch you guys later.
Perfect.
All
All right. Thanks, Amber. Have a great
Thank you
time.
for that.
Bye. That was awesome.
Okay.
That was. Yeah, I think we all went through it. It was not easy. It was
Yeah, and it's like, and highlighting that position is important, and we also have to remember that, we're here, we're allowed to make mistakes while we're here. We try to be impeccable, but we do make mistakes. So I think that, again, just like the other example, just because that is a leader position doesn't mean that people that might have got it wrong at first, or they figured it out later, or just even in life, when you just start to realize, well, there is a heavenly component where that's the ultimate decision, because some people can do the same exact thing and have like a different reaction. So it's not like the set in stone, the spirit of things has its own direction. And as we try to figure it out, let's all be able to learn from the mistakes across the board.
Yeah, and have compassion for those that couldn't see it. And that was such a mystery, I think, to most of us. Why do we see it and other people just absolutely can't see it? And these are good people, these are smart people, they're people with heart, they're people with spirit. Why? It was, I don't know the answer to that, but I think, keeping our compassion as things get, we're seeing some hard stuff. The cancer rates are just chilling. It's really scary. So we're not done. There's more to go. But I'm so glad.
True. I just want to put a shout out that I do believe that the future of healing is going to be something wonderfully unexpected too.
Yeah, I love that. That is really true. And we found each other, too. That was a miracle that happened as well.
But there are a lot of people who are really, really suffering, and they're wondering well, how come, they go to the churches asking for help, and the churches say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. There's such a need there for compassion, for genuine compassion. It seems that it's all but a race nowadays.
Yeah, because it isn't genuine. I think that, we were talking earlier about the UN directives, or whatever you want to call them, and how it's the opposite of compassion. It's couched as if it is, but it's exploitation if you really look deeper. And we just have to keep pointing that out so it doesn't keep happening over and over again.
What happened?
And just an important thing that I just want to add to that funding thing is that it's kind of like a double-edged sword, where it's like, this is coming from big money, this is coming from big resource, but at the same time, the idea that the be-all end-all is a financial decision always for these entities just isn't true, because we can see that they prefer social engineering to the bottom line, you know? So it's like a matter of like, they care more about control, but still we need to cut off the Gordian knot of their financial sources.
Exactly.
Yeah, the social engineering is based on so many ridiculous assumptions. It's not going to end well, sadly.
Well, let's go ahead and play this video because I think it's great. It encapsulates all the things we've been talking about so far.
I may have to leave early, or I will have to leave
This
early.
all
So I'll
comes
just
from a nation
tell you
That's
now.
okay.
organization called UNA.
Okay.
It was a report that was released on March 8th, Women Day.
Oh,
Here's
sorry.
the cover of the report, and it's
Yeah,
sort
we're
of the
not
best
seeing it.
practices suggestions
We want to see the
for
cover.
international communities on police.
I'll give some, do a little birds. Tweet, tweet.
Tweet, tweet, tweet.
Yep, and I do, when I'm in the house, and the chickens are out, I do
Sexual
cock it out
reproductive
do out
health,
the window.
sex, gender identity, gender expression.
Can you back it up a little bit so we can at least
Now
see
it's
the
a
cover and the title?
For
It says the March 8 Principles for a Human Rights-Based Approach to Criminal Law Prescribing Conduct Associated with Sex, Reproduction, Drug Use, HIV, Homelessness, and Poverty.
And I'll intro it by saying, where did they get their authority to do this?
international communities on how to police or not police conduct associated with sex addiction, HIV, drug use, homelessness. So, of course, there's identity. Here are the frameworks that they say that they're talking about. They want to basically talk about, these things: sexual reproductive health, consensual sex, gender identity, gender expression, HIV non-disclosure, drug use, and homelessness and poverty. Now, it's a very strange document, and I'm going to skip straight to the most strange thing. The most disturbing is Principle 16 around consensual sex conduct. They're saying that pretty much no consensual sexual conduct should be criminalized. It's same sex as well as different sex relations, consensual sexual relations between trans or non-binary people, all kinds of combinations, premarital, extramarital, no criminalization of sex, period. With respect to the enforcement of criminal law, any prescribed minimum age of consensual sex must be applied in a non-discriminatory manner, meaning we sort of take into account that persons under 18 can make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard. There is no age limit here when you read through this. So, I can see how maybe you don't want to send someone to prison for life for having sex with a 17-year-old when they're 19. Okay. But 7, 12, 4, right. No age at all.
If they can decide their gender and to be on puberty blockers and stuff, then why not? Kids are going to. It's just going to expand.
They want to go into debt for a card. That's sure.
Well,
Let's do all of that.
You and I were talking about this. You and I were talking about this story in the kitchen, and Miles, our 12-year-old, said, "Daddy, what's a minor? What is a minor?" And I said, "It's you until you become an adult at age 18. Until then, I'm king, she's queen, and you do what we tell you to do." Right? And I said, "So we rule the roost until you're an adult, kick you out." And he said, "What if I don't want to leave?" I'm like, "I don't want you to leave either, buddy. But you know what I mean? Like once you go at 18, you're an adult legally under the law. Like we know that That's when you can serve. That's when you can serve in the military. That's when you can go to war.
That's
right?
when you can vote. In Europe, that's when you can drink. Even though we know the process of demyelination, I think is what it's called, is the process of full maturity of the brain doesn't end until 30. But I guess the United Nations thinks that we should take into account the consensual conduct of minors, that they can decide and they can say for themselves. So I can see how 17 and 18 is something that could be considered. But now they're saying decriminalize completely all age groups. I don't think I should have to make an argument why that's problematic.
Well, and that's what the LGBTQIA plus stands for. There's actually maps now which are minor attracted people, and they even have their own flag.
Yes.
Which just blows me away.
Yes.
Yeah, but they're definitely not generally accepted in the LGBTQ community. They're just like that's them pushing themselves in there where the
Do we lose audio?
Yep.
Maybe.
I can't hear it anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of
Right
distractions here too.
Right when the other guy started talking, I couldn't hear it anymore.
Manners of deep criminal.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You can move it
we can
up.
hear you, but we can't hear the video anymore.
You can move it up a little bit. What, you're on 7? You
I
could
remember
go up to
distinctly.
8. Yeah.
All right. I remember distinctly that having this conversation about 2015, and we were talking about the decriminalization of pedophilia. And one of the guys I was talking to said, "Oh, that'll never happen." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's what you said 15 years ago about gay marriage."
Human rights. In fact, really, in general, the harshest tools have, and it ought to be last resort. Everything is last resort. It's bad. It's taking away human rights. This document, which I do recommend, it's important to be free to express whatever sexual criminalized for it, but it is not your right to have someone express. If you're the victim of a sex crime, too bad for you. Someone else was free to do it. That was their freedom to do it to you. It's not your freedom to have it done to you.
So this is just going to be like a society full of flashers. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're deciding whose rights are more important. The victims of sex crimes, no, not important. The sexual perpetrators, their right to do those things is more important than my right to not be abused sexually.
Like when I was a kid, I was at the Berkshire Mall with my friend Ben.
I don't know where you're going with this, but oh yes, I do.
And it's an important, and I praise, my age who have had similar stories to this. It's happened to a lot of boys that, it's like embarrassing to talk about, but let's talk about it. So my friend Ben and I were at the arcade at the Berkshire Mall in Reading, Pennsylvania, our favorite arcade. And we're out in the food court area and going to the bathroom. And this guy, and we're like, I don't know, young. So we're like, you listen to authority figure. He was a security. Didn't know what he was. And he's like, come over, you guys. And I don't know what he was doing. He waved us to the bathroom. And then he wanted to try to show us stuff, if you know what I mean. And we both were like, get out of here. And we hightailed it out of there. And we ran out. We did not go back to the arcade. And then we ran and looked for a security guard. And we told them what had happened. And the security guards were like, let's go right now. And they mobilized to go find this creeper, And I don't know if they ever found the guy, but
well, that was a human rights abuse to him.
Yeah, like apparently I'm not allowed to be offended by that.
No, you're not allowed to not see that. You have to.
Oh, I should have had to stay and watch.
His rights are to do it to you.
Yeah, I mean,
your right to.
This is really amazing. Carol, did they give the text of the article?
Well, yeah, they show a few of the more outrageous sections, and so those are the ones that I put right on the time stamp. So if you want to move up, you can see the next one is at 10:50. Did you show 8? You have, oh yeah, 10:55 is Principle 7, which is the third party financing for sex work is okay, meaning it's okay to be a pimp. So that's at 10:55.
Because we agree on a deferred. So yes, the exchange of sexual services for money or goods, totally fine, whether you're buying or selling. But look at the second paragraph. Criminal law may not prescribe the conduct of third parties who directly receive a financial or material benefit. What are fair conditions? First of all, of sex work, let's put a pin in that. They can't be punished for facilitating, managing, organizing, communicating. Basically, all that stuff's okay. Like, you can pimp out people for money. You benefit from it. So you can see why I'm calling this the Epstein clause. Like, so, G-Max and her crew should not have been prosecuted. Her human rights to traffic people are
Amazon
more important than the traffic
business.
Ease. Yes, part of work is work. A lot online that people are taking to on this day of work, calling out anyone who thinks that maybe someone should want something different from themselves. They're calling it like turf and racist and classist. Like, if you say the sex work is exploitative, you're out of touch because you're classist and elitist for saying those things.
Right.
Think about who is saying this. People who are not sex workers are saying this. Disenfranchised sex slaves in Africa and Asia, they don't take to Twitter and say, it's my right to be trafficked, right? Who for them right now, criminal law is speaking for them. It's supposed to be illegal. The UN is making the case that they shouldn't have those rights. The abusers should have rights. The UN also thinks.
Well, that's gonna.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say really quick. That's gonna make Bill Gates happy. He's no longer gonna have to refer to them as dinners. He can.
Right.
Call them
These free Epstein and.
Also, can I ask you?
This is really getting bizarre. I immediately, as soon as we're done with the show, I'm going to go investigate this. This is really too much. This is over the top, even for the United Nations.
Well, it's on their website. It's called the March 8th something. The very at 3:30, you can see the cover, and so you could Google that, and you'll find it. And then these different principles are the ones that they highlighted are worth looking at.
So it's like they put out the energy, like the majority of these sex workers, that's what they want to be doing, right? Again, the whole idea of slavery completely cut out of the equation.
Yeah. Slavery, but you could have, just like the small businesses have been taken over by big businesses, you could have big businesses be okay to do this. Giant businesses owned by the same people that own.
Yeah, because it is a big business. It literally is a big business.
But it's illegal now, and it won't be then.
Yeah, well, who give them just jurisdictions to make
allowed to continue to be on drugs? There were 37 deaths out of the.
Say again.
Oh, I just said, well, who gives them the jurisdiction to make laws on us?
That's what I'm going to investigate. Where do they get their authority? Or does anybody in Washington or New York get their authority?
Participants in the control group and 33 deaths out of the 224 in the experimental group. And it was so surprising that people who are not asked to get clean don't get clean and just die in a more comfortable place. Still die slower, or they die inside instead of outside. Is this the outcome the UN wants, just to let people OD themselves to death as a human right because of body autonomy? And the resulting communities where people live and then have, be addicted. Well, yeah, they say you should be able to poo and pee on the street because, you've cultivated this drug addiction, possibly sex addiction too, and you should not be criminalized for engaging in life-sustaining economic activities in public places, such as begging and panhandling, vending, hawking, or other, even hawking or other informal commercial activities involving non-contraband items, or engaging in life-sustaining activities in public places like sleeping, eating, preparing food, washing clothes, or it says even urinating and defecating in other public spaces. It sure does seem to me like the UN is in favor of social lapse, not.
So that's what I want to ask you at the end of this, which is, again, when you see a story like, God, they're progressives, they're ruining, they're driving us into the ground. But maybe I ask you this, isn't it part of the plan? Because if you think about what the World Economic Forum wants, they don't want us to work out of the house. They want us to work from home.
Right. You're this is the theory of like why they're doing this on purpose.
Right. Are they doing it on purpose? That's what I'm throwing it out there. Like, because why? It's scary to leave the house. You want to go down the street in Chicago right now and go get a burger? Watch out for Jesse Smollett. You just walk all the people that are walking down the street right now in Chicago, in San Francisco. Do you want to do that? Because I can work from home. I don't have to commute. I can stay. I can do all of this remotely. I can have everything taken care of for me because it's scary out there. And this is a way to sort of force us more inside.
I suppose.
Well,
that's
if
one
you,
theory.
I don't know, Natalie, if when you were in San Francisco, if you Tenderloin district, but if you drive over in district in San Francisco, this is pretty much what they have done. They have made drugs legal. They give them paraphernalia. They give them everything they need. And people are just laying on the streets. They're breaking in and stealing stuff. Like that's it, but nobody is doing anything about it. They've removed police power. They've removed all the things that can keep people from doing that. And so there's a reason that they're doing that. And so it obviously has to be what some of these people want. Otherwise, they would be doing something about.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories about why. What Michael Schellenberger calls the homeless industrial complex, because there is a lot of competing money, government money, going around to different competing organizations. And there's law enforcement, and then there's homeless advocates, and they don't work together. And, they are incentivized to not solve this as a problem. Why would the United Nations want this to feed into the homeless industrial complex? Why would they want to dehumanize human bodies to the point that it would be socially acceptable to have consensual sex with a 10-year-old? I don't know. I mean,
there is a lot to unpack here. I have a little bit of experience working with the homeless in Italy, and in fact, there was a rapid decrease in the number of homeless between Christmas 2019 and February of 2020, and I'll get into that in my episode on the hospitals and the legal system. But this is really, really amazing. This whole document. I gotta look into it.
Well, and the graphic element is barbed wire that comes into the pages. They talk about that later on. So, and the cover of this, old woman, barbed wire wrapped around her, and her rights to be whatever. I mean, it is just over the top, so far over the top that I hope
this is one of the lost food.
People will get it.
I even heard that human rights, when we talk about lawful language, that I haven't looked into this myself, but that human rights equals beasts' rights or monsters' rights.
Wow.
So I don't think that when we talk about human rights, people with an ideal are talking about the same thing as what it legally means.
Well, I think that's the ecological idea that animals come up to people. That's what people are thinking, that they get equal rights and they get to, not be murdered or whatever. But in fact, it's that our rights are being lowered to, cows and goats and worms.
The chattel, the whole chattel thing.
Chattel and vermin. Yeah, that's the here's the cover with the barbed wire around her, gray hair, old fat lady. I mean, it is.
Well, that fits in with I heard a couple days ago that the word dominion, we talk about Dominion Energy, Dominion, I forgot there are 5 Dominion voting machines. There are 5 different companies called Dominion, and it has to do with a place for a text from the scripture saying the Lord gave them dominion over the animals, and that we are being turned into animals, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can see it from this. Just thinking about what this document actually says, you get the picture. Well, I've got a little distraction here, so I'm going to have to dip out, but you can watch more if you want, or you have some videos too that you can
well, I added one. I don't know how good the sound is, but I do just want to say one thing, but I don't know if it's probably not even anything that you want to even hear right now. If you want to go.
No, go ahead. Say
okay. What it is how I'm always talking about that grassroots army channel, and because they have all the stuff going on in the school boards and stuff, and I didn't post this particular link because it's just so disturbing. I figured I would just give a description of it. Okay, this is an example of how flippin' demented this stuff is. Okay, this book that they're reading from a kid's library is a descriptive erotica of 2 parents raping their small child. That's what we're dealing with. Okay, so when we say the social engineers that are coming in and whatever, this is nothing that's just we'll just leave it at that, because it's so sick that you don't even want to hear any more of the details once you understand what the flip is going on. And there are many parents, they're angry, and they are pushing these school boards back. So continue to watch what happens, because it's super important.
Yeah, well, I think that it's the people that are doing this have had this done to them as children, and they want to normalize it so they don't get in trouble for continuing the idea. But it's not right, and we have to stand up now. And I think we want to be positive in this show. We want to say how to protect our nest, but we can't protect it if we don't see what's coming down the pike. So this is part of protecting it, is to really say this document has been written by the UN and listen to it.
Yes, time to tear them down as an entity.
Yeah, they're done now. This is over the top.
Yeah, we have to mobilize in every single neighborhood across the nation. We have to mobilize now.
Yeah, and the NATO is their militarized version. So yeah, and the WHO is the medical jail. The medical jail is what it's become. So we don't have jails for criminals. We have medical jails for us. Okay, well, I'm going to just say goodbye.
House of Cards, Carol. House of Cards. It's coming down.
Yeah,
love you.
Yeah, right. We'll take the bottom down first.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank
you. Bye-bye. Wow, insane. Just insane.
We really need to, like you say, we need to mobilize, and we need to, and when we analyze language, and that's one of the reasons, that's one of the ways that we will continue to communicate to our people, is that we're going to talk in a language that speaks to them the best. And we all do translations every day. When you talk to little kids, you translate into little kid language. So it's not like you're necessarily two-faced or playing different roles. It's just that if you're in a different situation, you need to translate the information accordingly.
Exactly. Well, let's play a couple minutes of this video about the vaccines, how to refuse a vaccine, and then we'll have a short discussion on that.
Wait,
Hopefully
is this the one I sent? Is this the one I sent?
Yes.
Okay, so there is some like sound from the person that's recording the video. And so you can still hear it, but if you hear something, it's not us, it's just the person that recorded it.
Right.
Neurologists have found that
sorry about that. I should have edited this out.
They do have pretty good commercials, actually. Just a little repetitive.
47 years of studies done on more than 2,400 tinnitus patients and countless brain scans. Scientists at the MIT Institute found that in 96% of
Can I
cases,
not skip?
I'll get into
is
this
linked with
later.
cognitive decline, chronic
I'll
fatigue,
get into this in
depression,
a
and
later
anxiety.
episode.
But most of all, it is actually physically damaging.
Yeah, we can wait. If you want.
Forcing
It's just that I think the public needs to be informed. We need to be told benefits versus the risk. We need to know what we're facing.
Well, the darker side of the polio vaccine, and what nobody knows, is that Jonas Salk has pointed out that in the last 10 years in this country, 2/3 of all the cases of polio have been vaccine-induced.
How many cases is that, Bob?
How
many cases, Bob?
Would you not interrupt me for a second? I know that doctors are used to interrupting patients, but not another doctor.
Especially another doctor.
I think, but let's get. He does make a point that we should also say Sabin is live and the live vaccine and Salk is
inactive.
Is inactive, as we say in the laboratory. All right. How many was it? They asked.
Well, how many people know that the European epidemic of polio, there were about 20 or 30 cases in this country. Now, of course, the American doctors will argue that the reason why polio disappeared in this country was because of the vaccine. But then why did it disappear in Europe in the 1940s and the 1950s without mass vaccination? Why doesn't it occur in the third world where only 10% of the people have ever been immunized against polio or anything else?
So, in other words, we may be fighting a tiger that died.
That's quite correct.
Ask the people in Great Britain. Ask the people in Japan who.
Back here, gentlemen, if you please. I've got probably the smartest audience we've ever had.
I have a question. How long a delayed action, if any, would you connect this with, like MS?
Is MS a possibility? Would multiple sclerosis be one of the possible results?
As a matter of fact, there's a new publication that just came out from John Hoffman, who's a close associate of Tony Morris's, that gives the references linking MS in later life to the early introduction of live virus vaccines like measles and like some of the others that are live viruses. Now, at the present time, I would recommend that anybody who has MS or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or any of those degenerative neurologic conditions of later life carefully review their vaccine histories.
I would also like to comment to that because in connection with my case, I've been doing some research.
Let me tell him once again, Ms. Gundy, that you are a Guillain-Barré victim contracted following your receipt of the swine flu vaccination.
Yes, and I am in the process of writing a book about my experience, and in the process, I've done considerable research. And from what I have learned, it looks as if immunizations frequently cause autoimmune diseases, not only Guillain-Barré syndrome, but lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, and other types of things. Now, I have no data at this point.
We should also say that there's a good deal of evidence suggesting that multiple sclerosis may be the result of distemper in an animal that the victim received during childhood. Now, none of this is absolutely nailed to the wall. But that's the problem with this. What's a mother to do of these balls in the air and nobody really certain?
I would just like to also comment that we had 46 million people vaccinated with the swine flu shot. And I have written to Ralph Nader's organization. I have written to some of the government organizations trying to get them to do a survey, an ongoing survey, to see if these vaccinations do cause autoimmune diseases or what the reactions are. I can't even get a response because I'm not a doctor. I have no clout. I'm a nobody.
Mrs. Grant, why were you shaking your head?
You know, it isn't only with that vaccine. It's with all vaccines. As a matter of fact, I'd like to write to me if they've had an adverse reaction. I'd like to help the government. We don't want to know, but I would like. I am a mother of 3 children, and I've on these things, and I chose not to vaccinate my children. But when they get to school, why is it that I have to fight for my rights as a mother and the choice I've made?
Let me just quickly, we're long, but that's a very important question. Here are the states in which you either have the totally free decision about whether or not to vaccinate, or we're calling them loophole states, states where they're not going to send your child to solitary if you don't have a...
Okay. Why am I not surprised at the list of states?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. And this is 1985, guys.
38 years ago. We want to keep going?
I think that's pretty much it. That's not the end of the list. There's like 3 pages of list, I think. And
there
it's,
is? Okay.
it's not surprising.
Yeah, let's just see the second page. But it's amazing that so many parents have been fighting for so long to not vaccinate their kids, or to get, make sure that they're only safely tested vaccines given to kids, and not 5 per year. And it seems like the battle, we just we're not making much headway.
Well, I think to me, it's just like a big boil that has been festering beneath the surface, hurting people along the way. And we're just at a point where it's just like the volcanic oozing of the whole thing, where, it's affecting people whether they realize it or not. I know myself personally, when the whole thing went down and the vaccines first came out or whatever, like, I thought that none of us understood the threat. Like, you know what I mean? And so you got to peel back the onion, like this particular clip, to be like, okay, so the people that have been saying stuff all along, and the people that have been on the other end funding whatever all along, these are the threads that we need to pick up on. It's like, and just even informationally speaking, like when I was a young person and just reading a lot of stuff or whatever, you don't realize, like, hey, publishing companies can kind of like get a hold of certain angles and publish a whole bunch of stuff in an era. And then you really don't realize that you're looking at stuff in just this one era goggles, and you need to, that's why we have documented history and people keeping track and stuff, is that it's like, if you go outside of your time period, you're like, I'm seeing the same things from a different angle now.
Right. Very good analogy. Very good. Yeah. So I underline what I said before. It is time to mobilize. We have enough ammunition to use against them, especially the school boards, the county health czar, etc., that we can truly mobilize now. We have to turn these various tactical things into a full-blown movement. That's what we really need, is a movement.
And one thing I just want to say on the school board level is that, I don't know if it's everywhere, I assume that it is that the school boards are elected during small, in between election times that people don't necessarily even know about. So you got to kind of like find out when your local elections are, and then try to get informed before that. I've found myself just finding out right before and just being like, oh, there's so many people, like, and it is important, and we're realizing more and more how important it is.
We certainly are. Okay, everybody. I think that's
have a great weekend.
Great weekend. Eek, eek.
Eek, eek. Bye, John. Thanks, y'all.
Bye, Carol.
Bye.